Welcome everyone to Plants Cannabis Processing Talks. I'm Emmett McGregor, CEO of SciPhy Systems and your host. Today we have Alex Barsky, CEO of C1D1 Labs, as well as Purge Technologies with their brand new spin tech centrifuge product. This is a really incredible product that we've been using in our lab for the purposes of purging butane and other hydrocarbon solvents from our hydrocarbon extracts. We've been able to replace multiple vacuum ovens for this purge process, as well as for making consistent homogeneous batter. It's allowed us to reduce our labor, reduce the cost of equipment. Really, it's been just a game changer for our lab. So I'm really thrilled to be able to share some more information about this technology with you today and get some insights into applications and what's coming next. So Alex, why don't you introduce yourself, give us a little insight into your background, how you came to get involved.
Sure. Well, first, I'm so excited to be working with your lab. The guys, Jeremiah and everybody over at your lab seemed super excited about using the machine, and their batter is just looking fire. My name is Alex. I'm the founder and owner of C1D1 Labs. I've been in the industry, in the community since my young adult life, and definitely had experience in the market as it was growing into the legal market that it is now. When California went 215, I actually started a laboratory with a friend of mine from college and had hand-on experience doing extraction and creating the business side of cannabis extraction and marketing side of cannabis extraction, 2016, 2017. That partnership didn't work out, and I was really left at a low point financially and was motivated to create some sort of influence into the industry. Specifically at the time, we noticed that multi-state operators, specifically Canadian companies, were coming down and trying to scare these California fire departments because at the time, a lot of extractors at the time were not so educated in safety with hydrocarbons and or the environment that they should be in, or the equipment safety and standards, let alone some of the equipment companies either. So at that time, I noticed that the Canadian companies were coming down and they were creating influence to eliminate butane extraction from the industry and specifically influence these municipalities to use CO2 machines only because they weren't flammable. A couple things there. One, those machines are running at 2,000 psi, or crazy high pressures, and which make them equally dangerous in their own ways. But two, that would have cut the head off the craft cannabis community, right from the get-go. At the time, flower wasn't really making much money in California. Extraction seemed to be one of the profitable routes, and butane extraction seemed to be one of the more affordable routes of going about it. CO2 machines at the time were very, very expensive, and they were trying to increase the barrier of entry. I took it upon myself to work with a fire protection engineer and fire marshal from California and get together in one room, Sacramento, Oakland, Santa Rosa, all the municipalities from California, and create an educational standard with our fire protection reports that outlined similar codes and standards from other industries, but really created a standard uniformed in California as to what they were going to expect in the laboratories, how they were going to regulate it, and what ways they were going to mitigate potential explosions while giving business owners a chance to succeed. Some of those municipalities, like Oakland, kind of went forward initially with no education from the fire department. And in other industries, when they open up licensing to a new industry, there's normally a ladder of education coming from the state department to give the local jurisdiction the education they need to take responsibility for signing off documents, right? That didn't really happen. So we took that upon ourselves. So I used my applicable experience in laboratories, worked with our fire protection engineer and PE and fire marshal, and created that fire report, which outlined equipment certification, NFPA, and local state codes for California fire codes, As well as we did a couple new things, right? At the time in Denver, you'd have to roll out your ASME solvent, your DOT solvent tank outside to fill it up, which is why companies, in the old Colorado days, like ETS, would have carbon steel tanks, right? We created the first indoor transfilling SOP. That's widely used across the country now. And we educated California on, bringing in the butane and leaving your processing equipment attached, both for safety, and so that we could chill our solvent. C1D1 Labs at that point started selling the C1D1 booths and really working with municipalities directly, as well as business owners. We did the same exact class for business owners in California. A lot of the OGs in California at the time attended that class, which was a really special moment, I think, in history for us. And we definitely gave them the knowledge they need to complete their permitting as well, which is something that I like to, flex in some sort of way, that, if a client has some sort of issues with their municipalities, normally we can come in with a PE fire protection and engineer report with prior experience and exactly what you're trying to do and get you through the finish line. So since we've released the C1D1 boost, we now sell the C1D1 pods. We now sell fire rated pods, in addition to the full line of extraction equipment, as well as the new technology that we're trying to constantly release, such as the SpinTech Purge.
Nice. Yeah. Incredible background, and coming from, original experience in the legacy market, then to safety focus, I think, and then coming from that safety focus into these products is a really unique perspective to bring. And it means that you have the know-how to actually get the equipment into facilities effectively, which is a big part of launching new equipment in this niche in particular. As far as this particular equipment, the SpinTech, the centrifuges, what was the hole you're trying to fill in the market? I know it's really worked for us for solvent recovery purposes as a alternative to vacuum pumps, but it seems like it's a little bit more than that. Can you give us a little idea of the range of applications?
Sure. So, being so hands-on in different laboratories, we always come in and see things that, as a fire protection expert, kind of makes us nervous. We always tell people, hey, this is probably not how I would do it. I'd get an engineer peer review here. I'd get a compliant part here. One of the things that we were seeing is people trying to evaporate solvents in just a normal centrifuge that doesn't have a vacuum pump, that doesn't have the interior seals to have an airway that's dedicated for this solvent. And they were creating a super dangerous environment. And that kind of got my head spinning. No pun intended. And we were looking at other industries and what other people were doing. And we worked with a manufacturer to develop a machine that counter rotates the cup so that there is shear force and agitation inside the cup. By creating a counter rotation in the cup, the centrifuge spins one way, the cup spins the other, like the earth around the sun, right? The agitation, in addition to the shear force, in addition to the 10 CFM scroll pump that we put into this machine, allows us to evaporate solvents extremely fast. And when you're talking about lowering your cost of goods in high production facilities, you're thinking about labor. You're thinking about, how much is a wall of vacuum ovens and a wall of scroll pumps and their electricity, and how is everything adding up to your cost of good? And that really comes down to efficiency. How fast are we going to do things? How many machines do we have to do it with? And can we get this done quicker and more affordable than our competitors?
That's the big point for us. I mean, and running the lab where we're processing 50 pounds plus an hour to keep up with that oil output, to try and do that with vacuum ovens. I mean, you're talking about a lot of vacuum oven capacity. You've got now two different size models on the market. Do you have an estimate for, how many cubic feet of vacuum oven space you replace with one centrifuge?
It totally depends on your SOPs, right? And what you're doing. A lot of our clients are using the machine with isolators. That seems to be the biggest push in the market is large amounts of THCA and HTE. HTE specifically has certain terpenes that like to stick in around longer than others. And we have clients in more humid places than other clients, say, for example, in Arizona. And they have more difficult time purging their solvents, right? So HTE specifically, if you're doing large scale and you're doing THCA, the goal is to remove, a decent amount, 14 to 20 cubic feet of vacuum oven space and or repurpose this. If we can create opportunity by minimizing usage of one equipment to increase production in another area, or do the same thing with manual labor, we're really taking what was a cost and then turning it into a production positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key thing with the HTE production and the crystals as well is that drying them down in a vacuum oven, you can't use very high temperature. So you got to have very, very long purge times. And so being able to take this to a centrifuge where you're running relatively short purge times and you have, a heat profile that's similarly low is pretty incredible. And for that HTE SOP, I know it kind of ranges again on viscosity and some of those factors. So this is a piece of equipment that your team has to know your product to get it right every time. But what sort of times running cycles are you seeing?
Anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes down to passable levels and runs detect, which is amazing. If we can make isolate in an hour and have it ready for packaging or HG in that time frame and have it packaged 24 hours, 48 hours later, potentially GC tested in the laboratory, ready to go to testing, that's how we really create efficiency. We're not wasting time with our tests. We're not wasting money with our tests. We're really getting the production turnaround there, which if you're a toll processor or even manufacturing your own quality goods, that revenue really comes from getting that product out the door.
Definitely. And the HTE spec, well, really the oil spec overall, I understand that you've met the most rigorous compliance testing requirements for the states in the US, and I think that means international as well. Is that right? You've hit
so we hit non-detect. We have a lot of clients in Massachusetts and the East Coast area, and that's where a lot of our clients are coming from. We in newer states like Missouri, we already have a few of these machines out, and it's getting competitive already. The idea of maintaining market share by getting in front isn't new to anybody. But these guys on the East Coast are really, really, really saving time, because when you got to get down to 12 ppm or something like that, you have those ovens running consistently, right? Take batter, for example. That's something that people sit around and they whip all day and they go through the ovens, and then they got to get it down to 12 ppm, and then they're sitting in the ovens forever too. We can take crashed out THCA, something from the oven, and whip it down to non-detect in the batter in 15-20 minutes as well, into a nice creamy consistency with a long shelf life, with a much higher rate of homogenization.
Yeah, so that's a key feature of the technology also that we love. You don't see this in a vacuum oven where, like you mentioned, you have a very manual process. We've seen labs with multiple dedicated employees literally just whipping batter, mixing terps in, just trying to get a consistent, homogeneous batch. Very difficult to do just if you have a manual mixing operation, whereas the centrifuge itself is essentially a homogenizing system as well with that counter rotation. So you mentioned making batter. Could you tell us about some of those homogenization applications and like what products you can produce using that? Because I think that's, the sort of Swiss Army knife utility.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about SKUs, right? Because one day one thing's hot, and the next day another thing's hot.
Yeah.
So for a lot of our clients, pre-rolls are hot. Infused pre-rolls are a thing, right? And as a user, I'm smoking them too, and I want the highest quality. And a lot of the clients that we see, shout out to MFNY, shout out to Holistic Relief, shout out to a lot of our clients that are pushing infused pre-rolls through this machine. And they're doing it with pure live resin, and they're dropping it directly into the cup with the product and homogenizing their high quality live resin into high quality flower, which is a high ticket price on the shelves, and it's a quality item. By completely homogenizing it, you're not seeing the oil fall over to one side, right? You're not seeing those dots. You're getting a better product.
Even burn because it really is fully infusing the flower with the oil and mixing that flower in the cup constantly, so you get a really even distribution across all the flower biomass, and so you're going to get an even burn. Because I know for infused pre-roll products in particular, that's one of the biggest downsides that leads to customer dissatisfaction, is if you get canoeing, or one side burns a lot faster than the other, and then you're wasting a quarter of your
on a much larger quality control scale. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's really big. And then I think one of the very interesting sort of product types that I think people don't really recognize how difficult it is to make something really homogeneous is actually on the vape oil. When you're mixing terpene back into either like a liquid diamonds or distillate, and you need a large batch to be fully consistent across all of your carts. It's not as easy as it might seem. This is a good application for the centrifuge. Is that right?
Absolutely. How your oil looks in your cart is a direct reflection on your brand, right? And being able to homogenize terpenes with THCA, terpenes with distillate, any of these homogenization factors, we're not only homogenizing, but we're de-aerating as well. Right? De-aeration is less oxygen and longer shelf life, but it's also a more uniform product in the pen, giving your client potentially more product, filling that cart up all the way. So instead of filling it up with an air bubble.
Right. And one thing I wanted to ask you about this, obviously we have the recreational market, a great market. And we've seen a little bit of penetration, not a little bit, a lot in some states where there's not a recreational market yet, but there is a hemp market where we've seen great opportunities for hemp products. One thing that really stood out to me as far as the vape products in particular is that you are able to homogenize THCA with terpene and flavor cuts, effectively HTE, and you're not exposing it to a lot of heat. I know a lot of people, they got to heat the distillate to get it low enough viscosity to really effectively mix the terps in with other mixing methods. You're able to keep relatively moderate temperatures and get effective mixing in the centrifuge. Is that right?
Correct. I mean, so I would still put distillate in the oven and let it warm up a bit. You don't want it rock solid.
Yeah, you want to start with, well, you want your SOP to be as short as possible still to keep your production up. So you want to start warm, but not
right.
like,
No, you're 100%. The mixing comes from shear force and agitation. It doesn't come from heat. And by having that, we can really keep the product quality higher on a larger scale while pushing more product out the door, which is a win-win for everybody on both sides. I know that a lot of our clients that are doing distillate really, really enjoy the machine for infusing terpenes into their distillate.
Right. And potentially, with the hemp products, being able to mix a THCA product with a CBD, distillate with a terpene cut or just straight THCA, and getting a really effective homogenization without a bunch of heat history, keeping, you got to keep in compliance. This is, I think, is a great product for that. And again, the volumes you're talking about here, let's talk about cup size again, because I know this would have been one of your points of innovation. You released a brand new product this year to sort of scale this up. You had about 750 milliliters in the first cups. Now you're scaling that up. What are the scales that you have available?
So we have the STP 1500, and that stands for 1500 milliliters, 750 liters each cup, and the STP 3000, which is twice the size. What you'll notice in other industries, a similar homogenization technology is upwards of $60, $70, $80,000 for something much smaller of scale. We really simplified the machine, but upgraded a lot of the necessities for the industry, focusing on the cannabis industry, focusing on the cannabis producer. Stainless steel cups being one of them. making sure that the machine's solvent compatible all the way through, not just having the vacuum path, not just having the PLC connected to the vacuum pump and the 10 CFM scroll pump having an exhaust port that's compliant, engineered, peer reviewed for safe exhaust of the fumes, but making sure that everything that touches your product is also safe as well. Including the custom molded stainless steel cups coming in 750 and 1500 milliliter cups.
Nice. So with those cups, I mean, depending on your application, you're gonna have different fill levels. Obviously, if you have some, if you're gonna see some foaming, although this product keeps the foaming down much better than something like just a reactor, if you're trying to do a purge and reactor, for example. But your fill levels there, you're probably processing on the smaller machine, the 1500, if you're going to try and mix oil, right? What do you say? You're doing half a kilo at a time?
Yeah, so normal run's about a little over half a kilo in each cup, so about a kilo altogether. And with your solvent, it's almost the same depending upon how you run your machine. A lot of our clients are realizing that the first stage doesn't really need much vacuum. The first stage, if you just spin it at a slow rate, that sheer force, that agitation, a little bit of vacuum does a lot of work. And they're able to remove a lot of that excess butane or propane or other solvents like pentane quickly, and that allows them to speed up the machine rather fast without getting that bubble.
Nice. And you have about double the capacity on the larger, the 3000 units, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, and that for us is huge. I mean, being able to do 2 kilos at a time, you're doing 15, 20-minute runs. So, you could do 5, 6 kilos potentially an hour. That matches a really large production capacity. But also, so if you're only using, say, 1 kilo an hour worth of capacity on the machine, the rest of that time in that hour, you can dedicate to homogenization, flavor mixing, getting your batters right, getting your consistencies right, and infusion of your flour. So because it is a multi-use tool, having excess capacity really can benefit the business.
Switching SOPs is as easy as switching the cup.
Yep.
Right. So you go from doing one thing to the other just by having your shelf, right, and labeled metric cups, and those metric cups can be stored in the oven or on the shelf, but they can be come back to, and they can be run second times for lower temps, and there's 100 different ways of doing it. But the easy rotation with the cups, it makes it so versatile during a standard operation day that a lab manager can really optimize all of his processes versus just one of them.
Nice. And the SOPs, I mean, you're talking about a few different control variables here, right? You've got your spin speed on the primary axis. You have a secondary axis that you're controlling as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what it looks like from the operator's perspective to control those SOPs?
Sure. So we've worked very hard in our PLC, as you can imagine, to create a program that can work for all of our users, specifically one that is staged out. So like any other centrifuge, a lot of the times you'll see what we call a ramp. Right. And this is when we increase your RPMs over a slow time. So over multiple stages. So by having 5 different stages in our PLC, we're able to create a SOP for a specific product that goes through different variations of spin speed, vacuum pump, vacuum, and time. Right. And those are the big 3. And by individualizing these and getting the availability to modify each of these variables by themselves in 5 different stages really allows the user to have a lot of control over their product as it's going through whatever SOP they want it to go through. The PLC now comes with a pause button that we've worked on, as well as a intricate monitoring system over the machine. If there's ever a fault, we can narrow it down very quickly.
Nice. Yeah, and one thing I know that you're working on automating a bit, but now is a bit manual, so it makes sense to have that pause button, is the 2-axis versus 1-axis rotation. As is right now, I think there's a simple mechanical change that you make to engage that planetary action.
Sure. So we developed a multi-functionality system, right? And the idea is that when we're doing planetary, right, we're mostly going to be getting mixing, homogenization, evaporation, infusion SOPs. When the cup's spinning one way, that's when the molecules are shooting out, right? And that's when you get your filtration. So what we decided was, what if we could just stop the cup from spinning, create our filter cups, and do both in one machine? And we recently patented this technology. It's patent pending. And we are super excited for future renditions of the equipment at a higher price point than what's currently on market for some of the guys that are really pushing their production. And it'll be completely controlled. You'll be able to control the rotation speed of the cups, stop the rotation completely for your filtration and separation, achieve higher RPMs, and do it all with the press of a button. Right now, we have a separator that comes into the machine. It only takes about 15-20 minutes to put into the machine, but once it's in the machine, those gears separate, and we're able to, therefore, achieve the different motions of the molecules inside the cup.
Right. So you mentioned filtration, and we didn't really dig into that very much. But one use of a centrifuge that a lot of people use with other types of centrifuges, but they can also apply here, is just using the G-force to push something through a very tight filter, right? So separating HT away from crystals. What other sorts of separations do you see on the system?
So we've seen a lot of fat separation and body separation, as well as, other industry uses. Functional mushrooms are being washed and then filtered and evaporated all in one machine. Not washed in the machine, but being filtered and then evaporated in one machine. And that idea of filtration and evaporation happening so quickly is wonderful for a lot of different SOPs.
Right.
We're excited. We're excited for the development of higher separation speeds and really crushing that efficiency for THCA and HCA separation in the future.
Nice. Yep. So basically, anytime you got solids and liquids mixed, you need to get the liquids out of the solids. This opens up that possibility for you with the mechanical change on the current systems, but in the future, it'll be just built into the automation. So that's excited to stay posted for that product for sure. So let's see. You mentioned that future is higher RPMs, it's more automation, it's maybe bigger sizes, I would imagine. Even though you have this, step up, you doubled your capacity this year, maybe we'll see you go even bigger. Is there anything else that you have, in the kitchen you're working on as a dedicated spin tech product?
We've got a lot of interest from the rosin boys as well.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to start launching the machine without vacuum pumps as well.
Okay.
Just for homogenization. A couple of our clients, requested this for larger scale for their SOPs that don't require solvents on the current machine. They're really loving it, and they've been able to secure contracts and grow their business as well. I think we're all interested in seeing how well it can whip up some rosin.
Oh yeah, nice. And you mentioned you have a system without vacuum. I think that you had told me that there was a vacuum pump, that this was actually relatively customized vacuum pump for your application. Was that right? Is that pump available for other applications, or what are you looking at there?
It will be soon. That's a 10 CFM scroll pump.
Nice.
So imagine an IDP 15.
Mm-hmm.
And that value is there, right? The values of those pumps are extremely high. So that's included in the MSRP as well.
Right. Well, you mentioned mushrooms. Obviously, that's a lot of interest both on the sort of psychedelic space with the breakthrough medicine applications there, but also in terms of functional mushrooms and the supplement side of the industry. That's a huge, interesting market to approach. You got any other markets out there that you're focused on attacking with this product?
The other industries have similar technologies. Right now, we're focused on the cannabis producer. I know the clients that have gotten us this far only want us to keep pushing them forward. So that's really where our motivation is. That's where our focus is in the industry of cannabis. That's
great. Dedication to the industry means you can narrow focus the needs of the customer and just really address.
Innovate, right?
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Love to see it. Well, any other items you want to plug here? Any new developments on the C1D1 side? anything, just insights into what you think about this, the industry moving forward into 2025?
We're super excited to see the industry grow. I mean, we've got clients in Missouri crushing it. We've got clients in South Dakota crushing it. We've got new clients in New York, New Jersey. We're doing installation in Hawaii. It's nice not to go down to Modesto and, to all these areas in California anymore. And we get to kind of go outside and play with new genetics, meet new growers, see new techniques. A lot of these extractors have been hiding, underneath the carpet over on the East Coast for years, but they've been hustling and they've been learning and they've been, implementing new techniques as well. So, creating that community across the country and creating a network of clients in new areas. And that's really exciting for us. And we're so excited to every time that we can turn on a machine and just see the joy in a client's face as they see their money being made. And that's, to me, that's the best gift I could ask for, is to help somebody else, along their path and journey.
To that point, I really wanted to shout out that you've got a great support network out there. I think you've got a user group where everybody is able to talk to each other about SOPs and new techniques and show off, of course, the goods. So really appreciate that piece of the business there as well. Some pure support is always much appreciated.
Community. It's so nice seeing people share with each other again, instead of just beating each other up on the internet. And that's really dope. And by, helping each other, leveling up, we're all helping, ourselves. And that's a win-win. And I can't stress that enough for my clients to continue to use that Discord. We've also want to share that technology and that information with new clients as well. I know that Emmett and I and the SciPhy team have been working on launching a little demo. I'm not sure how much we can say, but that processes that we're talking about should be available for potential buyers in the very near future to get their eyes on.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to welcoming people into our demo facility out here in Hillsboro, Oregon, showing people hands-on what the Spin Tech can do and how we use it in our production lab. Really looking forward to that in February. So stay posted, everybody. All right. Well, thank you, Alex, so much for joining us. If you want to find out more information about SpinTech and all of the amazing applications, as well as other technologies from C1D1 Labs, you can find them at spintech.purge on Instagram, www.purgetechnologies.com for SpinTech information, and at C1D1 Labs on Instagram for both all the C1D1 booth as well as other technologies, and www.c1d1labs.com. I'm Emmett McGregor, CEO of SciPhy Systems. You can find more information about our equipment as well as upcoming demos and many other topics at www.sciphysystems.com. Follow us at SciPhy Systems on Instagram and wherever social media takes you. And once again, thank you so much, Alex, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Emmett. It's always a great time talking to you.
Yeah, likewise.